Hello, everybody. We are back with Jonathan from Fun City Editions. First of all, thank you for coming on again. Hello.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for having me on again, Ryan.
I think that for the label interviews, I think you're the first one that I brought back on twice, and I did that purposefully because it seems like Fun City. The last time we talked, I think it was in May. It might have been like very early May or late April of 2022. And
Mhm.
Fun City just seems to have taken a life of its own in a completely different path since then. And I may be speaking out of turn, but I feel like before then, people like respected Fun City in a way that
Mhm.
was obviously like, hey, these are genuinely great movies. I like that I'm able to support them, but something about the releases since that date have kind of, especially in my channel, lit
Mm,
everybody on fire. Like,
really?
yeah, we're
Wow.
gonna get into some details on the four because I really want to hear your side of some of these films. But the biggest one I think for this channel has been Natural Enemies. We
Okay.
have
Oh, cool. Very
we have a
cool.
Patreon, and through that we have a Discord where we have like our own little hangout group that we can talk in all the time. And Natural Enemies seems to be one that I don't think we've gone more than a week since release without bringing it up at least once or twice, genuinely. And I wouldn't say that and lie to you. It has been an impactful film, and we've talked about how it's made people feel, and hearing the way that people have looked at it and been emotionally impacted has been something that just I've been grateful to see that you've been able to put it out there. So first of all, thank you for bringing that to the world.
Well, thank you for talking about it and talking about it so much. And it's really special because that was a movie that was out of circulation. I mean, there
Right.
was a VHS rip on YouTube, but like it just really hadn't been treated properly. And thankfully, Jeff Canoe, the director and writer of the film, is still around, and he is tickled. Like whenever I send him reviews, and
Nice.
he's just like, he says things like "You're my sunshine" and stuff like that. He's like, "Can you?" He said to me one time. The funniest thing he said to me was, "He's like, can you release this Blu-ray in like 1994? You know, get get me out of movie jail." He's a funny guy. Though if you saw the interview, some of that definitely peeks through in the interview
Yeah.
with him, just how funny he is.
I can
You can
imagine.
tell he's the guy who ended up going on to make comedies later on
Right.
after National Enemies because he is genuinely like he's just one of those dudes. You're talking to him, he's always on. He's got a quip. He's always got a quip ready, and there's another one, for the two lines down.
Right.
So
I love watching Natural Enemies, and now the next time I see it, it'll be with the context of the guy that made this called Jonathan is Sunshine, and that those just don't jive together at all.
That's true. Well, also people said, well, also like this movie being released by a company called Fun City is also very something about that is kind of funny too. So yeah, that was awesome to do, and it feels like um, also just that that was the one time we did that. The one time I think that we've done something where there wasn't really optimal materials left. Like we were really
Right.
working from the, as far as anyone knows, like the best surviving element, which just so happens to be a 35 millimeter print that was deposited at the Library of Congress for copyright purposes. So that's what, back then it was still kind of pre-video. So it was sort of common practice for producers or studios to deposit a print in the Library of Congress. And thankfully, National Enemies was made when it was, and thankfully somebody did that. So
We on this channel we are a huge proponent for archiving art like this, for worrying about lost media, and the big thing, especially with Natural Enemies, is bringing things back that haven't seen a release literally in decades and potentially ever on home video. With other labels like Imprint in Australia doing that for way more than anybody ever expected, I think, because I don't know if you pay attention to them, but it seems like every month they're announcing two or three, and they're like worldwide debut on home video, which is astonishing. But for
mm,
Natural Enemies, it is amazing to see a piece like that that is so emotionally affecting, just under trying to like grasp how it would be overlooked for so long, because it seems so it's unique in a very like harrowing way, obviously, but it seems like one that people would want to protect. So I'm grateful again, like it was made when it was. It's just sad for how many that we could think about that we've lost in that time as well.
Well, I mean, this movie's not even this movie's it's only 40 something years
Right.
old. No, I think it just has to do with how it was made. That's part of the reason why it
Yeah.
hasn't really been available. Is just because of is a independent movie, and the distribution was companies that are not in existence anymore, and people just and Jeff Canoe wasn't in control of the movie since it came out. He kind of gave those rights up at way back then, so he never even thought anyone would do anything with it, and he had no idea
Right.
about the film elements or anything. I mean, yeah, so it's just it was just fortunate that that there was something that was preserved, and it's really again
Right.
just kind of by chance. So because there's other stories about the other materials for the movie which are really not good. So um,
That seems to be the case with a lot of these films that have been put out by some of these boutiques over the last couple of years. Just amazing restoration work for something that's found in somebody's closet, or some random, literally like dumpster discoveries on some of these things. So
yeah,
I'm
well,
oh,
Walking the Edge, that
yeah,
negative was one of those where it was in somebody, that was like in the producer's garage or something. It was not stored in proper climate controlled
right.
conditions or anything like that. So now it is.
Grateful we found it, and grateful for your entire catalog so far. Like I said, the last time we talked in May, I think Coca-Cola Kid had just been announced last time we spoke, so nobody had been able to ingest that yet. Even
Okay.
since then, I may be wrong with the timeline. Since then, it seems like every single time you announce something, it lights the world on fire. One of the ones, I think the first one announced after we talked was Heartbreakers, and
Okay. Okay.
this seemed to be the first step in like, holy hell, Fun City got that one, and everybody discussing it online. If I remember, I didn't this play recently at the New Bev too, or is about to in Hollywood. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it did. It played in September, 2 nights at the New Bev, and Bobby Roth, the writer and director, was there. I did a Q&A with him both
Yep.
nights. It was a lot of
Go.
fun. It was a great audience both nights, and it was a thrill for him because he hadn't seen it projected probably since
Wow.
1984, 85, and nobody's really screened it. And he lives 3 blocks from the New Bev, so that was cool 'cause he just could roll out of bed or whatever and
Right.
walk over there. So
It's amazing. I didn't know you were there. I I just saw it advertised, and I've got a friend that lives fairly close and goes there many times a month. So, I mean,
yeah.
random happenstance that I asked about that. But now that you're there, I mean, curious how did it play over? How did everybody like it?
Oh, it seemed like it seemed like it was received really pretty well. I mean, people stuck around. A lot of people stuck around for the Q&A after, and
Good.
yeah, I mean, it seemed like it was a good, it was a good sized crowd both nights. Definitely New Bev does, New Bev's. I've when I've been there anyway, which is I live in New York, so I'm not
Right.
there a lot. But I mean, there's usually really good crowds when I've been there. So I was excited to be able to have the movie play there, and it tends to be like definitely, I think a lot of people hadn't seen the movie before,
Yeah.
and so it's just cool for someone like Bobby to be able to see the movie, not only with people that saw it or were around when it came out, but a lot of younger people too. But the other cool thing is since it's LA, um, you get just very casually, you're going to be like able to see, oh, there's so and so from the movie who was in the
Right.
movie. You find out there's the costume designer, there's the editor, there's the assistant director, there's the casting person, because these people, it's a company town, so
Right.
so many people live nearby. So you don't really get that anywhere else except LA, and that's really cool. So that happened with Heartbreakers. There were so many people there that worked on the movie who were just there. I mean, there were like 3 or 4 cast members there the first night, and there was, like I said, a lot of behind the scenes people. It was really cool. People were really supportive. It showed how much Bobby's, was loved and
Yeah.
respected by his peers, and people wanted to come out and support him. So it was a really, yeah, it was really cool.
That's super neat for you, man. That's fantastic to hear. I love stuff like this, and then seeing somebody experience something like that for the first time, especially in person, or even reliving a film that they worked on 37 years ago, has to be amazing for some of those people. It's lovely that we're getting these restorations for people that can still see their work before they don't get a chance to. It's nice.
Totally, yeah, absolutely, and we've been fortunate that for especially I feel like in this last year, it definitely feels like we've done a number of films where the filmmakers are alive, and we had some great, like the Heartbreakers and the Natural Enemies discs both have the director interviews. I'm really proud of those on both of those discs, and those were a lot of fun to do. And I was able to interview both guys
Yeah,
directly, and both told me, and just the fact that both filmmakers were, told me, that they really appreciated how those pieces turned out, and which is cool because those guys are both like filmmakers, editors. Jeff Canoe is outside of being a director and a writer, he came up as an editor. So when he's like, "Oh, you
yeah,
did a really good job putting that whole thing together," because we talked for like 3 hours. That's why
yeah.
it ended up being a two-part interview on that disc, because it was so long. But he had so many good stories. I didn't want to. There was just stuff I just felt like, oh, we'll make this work. No. And anyway, just to have him watch the whole thing and tell
Right.
me that he was okay with it, I was like, or that more that he liked it, was very gratifying.
And that's the thing with these releases. These are either first time releases for a film for the most part, or legitimately like definitive releases. This will likely never be topped. And to see that amount of respect being paid to work by Lynn Ramsey, or work featuring big name. I mean, this last one that you put out, you've got multiple Jeff Bridges films in the catalog now. That's pretty fantastic.
Well, yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm definitely, we have multiple. That Cutter's Way is the second Jeff Bridges movie, but also the second Yvonne Passer movie.
Right.
We had Born to Win earlier, and that's the case where of course we missed Yvonne Passer by not that much because he
Right.
didn't die that long ago. So yeah, yeah, very cool to have. We have still less than 20. I think we still have less than 20 titles in the catalog, but having a couple of Jeff Bridges movies is fun. Yeah, I'm I'm proud of that.
Friend of the channel and podcast, They Live by Film, has spoken to you twice now as well. So anybody that wants to hear more of Jonathan's thoughts on that, I'll link that in the description below. But some of these other ones, obviously, have to bring up. Married to the Mob is one that people seem to be really attaching themselves to. And I don't know how much you pay attention online. I know that you've been on like the Blu-ray.com forums and seen you some interacting some other places, but they seem to really enjoy this one. And I don't know what it about the title, but it is so interesting that we have these wide array of genres from you. And like we talked about last time, they all feel sort of cohesive. They feel very Jonathan. And these last four, it kind of like leveled it up for me. And I'm curious, does it feel like there's any added pressure over the last year to keep putting out just these more amazing and impactful titles? Because it seems like you just keep kind of stepping up the game.
Well, I mean, there's always pressure. I mean, I don't know about pressure to come up with more impactful titles, but yeah, I mean, I've been certainly the last few things we released, it's been really, they've been all like some of our biggest, most popular
Yeah,
titles. And, and yeah, as you mentioned, there are like different. they're diverse. They're not all the same type of film, so that's very encouraging. There's definitely pressure, yeah, to find to have more stuff in the pipeline, and then there's the pressure of getting the work done on each of those and trying to match up the right people for extra features. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely pressure to try to, yeah, keep finding things that feel like they somehow fit the MO of the brand, like whatever that
Right.
is, and also have those other qualities, like, oh, they, if they haven't really been done before, I mean, that's always a really nice thing. I try to have, but as you mentioned, you showed Cutter's Way and Married to the Mob, like those have come out before. So it's not always the case, but I mean, they've come out on Blu-ray before. But yeah, definitely trying to keep getting things that people are going to be really excited about. And I mean, I would say that the thing that's been really the most encouraging, um, general development, or what have you, throughout the whole history of the label has been just that at the same time that it's really hard to define what the label does, or like what kind of movies
Yeah.
we put out, because I can't even really
Right.
express it succinctly. The fact that people do seem to get that there's some kind, like you mentioned, there's some kind of cohesion, and the fact that and the fact that people have been open to. I mean, frankly, a lot of the stuff that we've put out have been things that were available to every other boutique label around for a long time, and they weren't done because that they were deemed not in every case, and I can't speak for every label, of
Right.
course, but on a general level, a lot of the things that we've done weren't released in the past by other labels because it didn't fit their uh, either their brand or what their goals,
Identity or something. Yeah.
well, or identity, or it didn't, or it was not, it wasn't, they weren't seen as films that made sense
Right.
business wise either. So the fact that some of these movies, which are difficult, like, I mean, something as, as dark and grim as National Enemies, or just things that are, or things like Jeremy from our first round of releases. That was a movie that, the MGM, from the MGM catalog, which has been, mined by every label
For
multiple
years.
times, and nobody, and I always loved. I mean, that was a movie that I always loved, but
Yeah.
it wasn't released because it. I think it was just people were thinking, well, it's not genre enough. It's too sweet. It's like
Yeah.
nobody. Those were the types of things that I loved, but it was definitely a question as to whether we could make those work.
Right.
That we could make those viable, for to release them and actually be able to keep, for those to help sustain the label. And I mean, so that's just been the most encouraging thing, that people are like, "Oh yeah, cool. We want to see more stuff like Heartbreakers, and we want to see more stuff like Jeremy, and we want to see more stuff like Natural Enemies." Like, basically, we
Right.
want to see more dramas. We want to see more films that are not that don't have a real necessarily a really strong genre component, or something that's that hooks you, or usually hooks an audience, or seems like a safer kind of thing to release. So that's been the that's just been the coolest thing.
You
That
are
I've
setting up
experienced.
perfectly for a couple things that I have on my list, and I'm going to go out of order now because this is just absolutely wonderful. One of the things that I've noticed is with a lot of these boutique labels, obviously there's not like a label that caters to, like Jeremy, like a very not it's not cheesy in any way. It's not something that's done for comedy. It's just an earnest romance in a lot of different places. And a lot of these labels, they cater towards the genre fans or people that are into exploitation. And most people are not going to take the risk on something like Jeremy. And I don't know if there's a buried question there, but more just like kudos to Fun City to be able to be willing to absorb some of the risk, because obviously in 2022 and 2023 now, where people are looking at physical media for like the fifth time saying that it's on its way out, lol, it's never happened so far. The fact that we're still making that observation and you're willing to take a risk on something like Jeremy or Cutter's Way that maybe wouldn't be this major, it'll sell 20,000 copy draw, but you can still put your own personal spin on it, is kind of a fascinating litmus test for the buyers, because now you've got a whole group of people that seem to support you no matter what you're putting out, that just love every single thing that you touch. So is that a difficult choice for you? Is that something that you struggle with, or at this point have even had to worry about, really?
Which thing? Worry about which thing?
Maybe the risk in some of the more we'll say like easy dramas is not something that finds a lot of home on these boutique labels, and
Easy,
it's a lot of films that
easy,
people love genuinely.
easy dramas? Did you say?
I'm trying to be more vague on the titles, because it's,
Oh,
again, you cover so many different genres. It's hard to pin down one, but a lot of
yeah,
them,
right.
other boutiques wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole, because they're not cheesy 80s horror films. They're not crazy
Yeah.
70s sexploitations. It's not black exploitation from the 60s. It's not erotic thrillers from the 90s. These are just very like genuine stories that people really want to live and feel and breathe in.
Well, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's really nothing more complicated than a lot of the stuff. Most of the things we put out, I genuinely like or love, and that's also like the types of movies that I think I've probably movies that I've been drawn to for my like whole adult life,
Yeah.
and so it's sort of like specific these sort of more small scale ground level
Yeah.
more reality based films, not necessarily reality based. I don't want to pigeonhole it or specify it too much, but
Right.
generally small scale films and the types of films that are not made anymore, or they're more in really just exist more in television, but in like long form television.
Right.
And there's something special about seeing a lot of this type of content, which is which is too small for big screens now, and then is otherwise only exists in like 6 hours or more of a TV series. And there's
Yeah.
something to be said for let's see it in like 90 minutes or under 2 hours.
Agreed.
And so that's a lot of this. I like because I find even when these movies are from the 60s or the 70s, and it's like before my time or when I was really small, there's still a lot of stuff in those movies that are really relatable,
Oh yeah.
because of the fact that they do a lot of them do tend to be more reality based films. They're so-called low stakes or low ambition films, and but I find like that's kind of I it's kind of ironic because I find that like a lot of these movies are dealing with actually real issues, real
Yep.
world things that were going through people have been going through, from time immemorial.
Yeah.
Most of our movies are, in the last 50 years, but I mean, a lot of it is things that people are still dealing with now, and obviously for way before that too. But it's funny that they get characterized as being low stakes, or and it's but then it's like, but what I mean to me, like the comic book movies are more low stakes because they're just
Right.
they're just it's completely fantasy and it's
Yep.
completely I mean everything is like larger than life, and these are movies that I think they sneak up on you because they have these quiet moments that end up being really powerful, or can end up
Yep.
being really powerful and really devastating. And that's always been the types of movies that I've really um, responded to the most. So, and those are the rewatchable movies for me. I like
Agreed.
I like for someone's sad or depressing movie that they don't want to go near. I mean, that's a lot of times that's my happy movie. I mean, but I mean, I just find that those I can. There's certain scenes like if something makes me if something if I can sometimes I like that a lot of these movies I've seen them a bunch of times and they still get me.
Yeah.
I still shed a tear at I can still you know well up at some of these movies that I've seen multiple times. So I don't know. So it all just again goes back to you do what you know. In a sense, you do what you know to a degree.
Right.
Not wholly. There's definitely some things I've put out that I didn't actually really know very well for a long time. But there's things I feel I can do something with because I feel again it's like we're talking about this very vague kind of category of movies.
Yeah.
It does span genres, and there's comedies in there, and there's dramas, and there's movies that are more thrillery. So it's hard to pin down, but
It really
when you
is.
know it, you know it, and I think that the fact that it hadn't really been done before or hasn't really been done so much. I don't want to say we're like reinventing the wheel here, but
Right.
definitely there's like, we said there was some hole in the market there to some extent.
I
And,
agree.
and and it just so happens that it's a lot of stuff that I've been wanting to see for a long time that I wasn't seeing
Right.
coming out, and I knew there were other people, through forums and social media and blogs and stuff like that. That there were some other people out there that really liked things like Jeremy or I Start Counting,
Right.
you know, or Heartbreakers.
And I don't know if it's just me, and maybe just a good place to give some public feedback on it here. But one of the things that I really wanted to get out there is, and I've interviewed many labels over the last year, and I don't think I've said anything like this to anybody else. These are ones that I feel like each pretty much every release, like probably 90% of them so far, have been tailor made to something that would fit me perfectly. And the word that I keep coming back to is the word contemplative. And it seems like no matter what genre that you're putting out, it's a movie that I like I can't shake off. And it's not like I want to shake it off. It's something that no matter what, I'm somehow still thinking about it for like 10 days afterwards. And it's
Wow.
everything else, no matter what I'm absorbing, I'm wanting to like right after watching Walking the Edge for the next 10 days, it was I mean, Walking the Edge was shot so much better. How is this like getting accolades nowadays and stuff like that? It's something about every one of these releases. It is so special to be able to see it in this new light and
Yeah.
compare it in a way that we didn't have that lens in 1984 when some of these were released. And I love to see that attention because, like you said, a lot of these are not getting made like this. And perhaps some of that, we could maybe say is like the budgetary side of things because we've kind of lost that whole mid-range budget film. It's either got to be the most independent film in the world or a $3 billion comic film, and it
Yeah.
doesn't work when there's genuine stories to be told out there.
Right. Right. I mean, I think yeah, one of the important distinctions about a lot of the stuff that we've put out is interesting is that a lot of the films are actually studio films,
Right.
or they're movies that were made they were movies made for like mainstream
To play in
distribution.
theaters. Yeah.
Yeah. So and I think for a lot of people um they if it wasn't like one of the A level one of the movies that was Oscar nominated or Oscar
Right.
winning from that time, or from a very, very well known, it's from a group of very well known filmmakers. A lot of the stuff that we've put out are sort of the slightly deeper cuts. We're just on like this, not necessarily lower quality. I don't
Right.
want to say second tier in terms of quality, per se, but they're just the movies that were that 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 haven't lived on as much because they're, again, like the film, it's not a Scorsese movie.
Right.
It's not from like one of the master auteurs who where their whole body of work is, constantly being watched and discovered
Right.
and put out there on, and but I think and sometimes it's funny because then on the flip side, so since like we've been partnered with Vinegar Syndrome for so much of our existence, um, and so many of the other labels are dealing more in genre stuff and more, uh, not Hollywood stuff. So
Right.
we're like kind of like it's a weird thing where we're like the Hollywood label in a way, but then also in so many ways, like you said before, we're doing stuff that no other labels are doing. But sometimes there's people I read feedback like, oh, their stuff is so mainstream because it's not shot because we're not doing like the shot on video horror
Right.
stuff, and we're not, it's not extreme. It's a different kind of it's extreme
Right.
filmmaking in a different way. But yeah, it is funny to think about. You could be mainstream and then at the same time be going against the grain.
Completely. And every year, especially in a lot of the time when a lot of these were made, these were just ones, if they didn't have an A-list star or an A-list director at that time, they're not going to be in theaters for 3 months at a time, in many of those cities. And because of that, maybe many people didn't see them back then. And if they didn't do well, then they won't get another release. They won't get maybe another theatrical run. So genuinely, some of these are really seeing like only their second life, which for a lot of these other films, they've been out on every format, sometimes multiple times,
Right.
and have maybe gained a fan base many times and it's sort of steamrolled throughout the years. But some of these, like Natural Enemies, never had that opportunity. This isn't something that it's been able to chug along and keep putting people on the train as they roll on for 40 years. So it's amazing to see so many willing to hop on that train now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it speaks to people. I mean, what I've been surprised by, very surprised by, genuinely. I'm not just saying this. I've been surprised by the fact that there's been as many people. I mean, as modest as it is, we're still here and we're in a niche here. But
Right.
as modest as that is, I have been surprised by the fact that it seems to be like something that more people wanted than I imagined or
Yeah.
thought were out there.
That's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that you're feeling that as well, because it's nice to see like somebody reference Fun City Editions on some of these big, movie fandom podcasts that are out there, like ranking films from certain years or bringing up, certain genres they talk about. Go, hey, did you hear Fun City just put out this other one? I've heard it probably 3 or 4 times over the last 6 months, and it's always wonderful to see that sort of reception because then suddenly there's another interest in something that's come out over the last 2 years, and in many of these labels they don't really get that continuing effect. So I just hope it continues to happen for you, and it appears that it will be because there's a couple things that have either been soft announced or fully announced. You've
Mhm.
got a big one that was just started talking about this week with Party Girl coming out soon. What can you tell us about Party Girl?
What can I tell you about Party Girl? Well, it's obviously a very beloved film.
Yeah,
If you've been following the response on social media, and it's a it's a classic from the '90s boom of indie filmmaking. Totally the type of film you were just alluding to a few minutes ago that doesn't really exist anymore in terms of like budget range.
yeah,
And it stars Parker Posey, who was and is, and at that time, at the time that Party Girl was coming out, she was starting a run of starring in a lot of indie
yeah,
movies that at the time got a lot of play, and she was on her way to being Queen of the Indies, and this was actually the first her first starring role, and is after she had appeared in Dazed and Confused in a smaller but very memorable part. And it's just like this great time capsule of '90s New York
yeah,
and the club scene, and it's also throwback to screwball comedies from the 30s and 40s, and it's just a great, really fun. It's a time capsule, and it just hasn't been available in a decent version in a long time. So we actually went back and we worked from like original 16 millimeter negatives and reconstructed the movie, scanned it in 4K, and everything had to be. So this was a movie that was shot on 16 and blown up to 35. But we actually had Michael Felsher from Red Shirt Pictures. I don't know if you've had him on here before, but
Not yet.
Anyway, you'll see, you've probably seen his logo on
Oh yeah, I
many
know
DVDs
Michael.
and Blu-rays over the years. Anyway, he reconstructed the whole movie, like all of the transitions, all the cuts, and all the
Wow.
fades and everything had to be redone again. And anyway, I think it looks really good. It's actually, I know we're talking about physical media here. It is actually on the Criterion channel now. So if someone
Yeah.
wants to see how it looks, how our master looks, we did it, but it's on there now. So it's kind of like a commercial for our release. But the
Fantastic.
response has been huge. Like when they
Yeah.
posted on their socials, before the day before we announced ours, it was a massive response. And then on ours, it's been, I mean, more modest because we don't have the same following that Criterion does, but it's been our biggest response, in terms of, at least in terms of all the social media. That doesn't
Right.
always necessarily mean that it's going to translate into the most sales. I hope
Of
so,
course.
but it doesn't always work that way. There's a lot of people that are, as you know, that are they're movie fans, but they they ingest their movies different ways.
Yeah.
So they're not all physical media people. I wish they all were, but this is a movie that this is all to say that this is a movie that sort of goes beyond the appeal for this movie and how much it's beloved goes beyond, I think, the physical media audience crowd. So yeah, there's definitely going to be people that enjoy this new restoration and unfortunately do not buy our Blu-ray. But that's not true for the people that end up watching this podcast here, or video. What do we call it? Video cast?
I don't know. It's also put out as a podcast. We'll just say podcast.
Also, it's both. Okay, yeah. Well, anyway, so we're very excited about it. It's obviously, uh, a real thrill to again put something out that people have loved and just hasn't been out in a decent version. And again, it has to do with economics and just the way that a lot of these movies end up being bought and
Right.
sold. The catalogs that they're part of, the companies that put these movies out go out of business, and then they get absorbed or acquired by another company, which also then goes out of business and is absorbed by another company. So it's just like a this is just like an ongoing
Right.
thing, and Party Girl's not unique in this way. But thankfully, everything was available in terms of all of the original elements, and we were able to work off those. And then also the filmmaker again is around, and she's great, Daisy von Schurler Mayer, and we did an interview with her, and she's awesome, and she was so supportive. And then Bill Coleman, who's the music supervisor, because the music is such a huge part of this movie, and so we got a great interview with him. Harry Berkmeyer, who was the co-producer and co-writer of the film, he actually came here to my apartment, and we turned it into a
Nice.
studio and shot him. And then, of course, everyone's going to be the most excited. We got Parker Posey on the disc, a new interview with Parker. So really cool. There's a real warmth from everyone who worked on this movie. Everyone loves people. This movie is almost 30 years old, but I got so many like, are you going to talk to so and so? Are you going to talk to this person? I could have had I mean, budget and time constraints.
Right.
At a certain point, I just can't. We couldn't do all the interviews, but we could have had even more because people love, even the people that worked on the movie a lot of these people went on to do a lot of other big things. But Party Girl's a very special movie for everyone who worked on it. So people are really proud of it, and it's yeah, and loved and we're happy to talk about it. So, hopefully that all comes through with the release.
It appears it's going to. I mean, there's so many things that I read in, like you were talking about, the social media reaction has been remarkable. The amount of times in different websites that I read the phrase "Criterion has to be pissed they didn't get this" is hilarious, but it more so speaks to the quality of cinema being put out by Fun City because and not putting down Criterion in any way, but obviously there's a lot of films that people have seen, deserving of that C on the front of the Blu-ray case, and
Yeah, right, right.
nowadays it's sort of different because we have other labels that are competing that you could argue are as high quality or in many cases even higher quality that they're able to continue putting out films like this. And it speaks to the esteem of somebody like yourself that you're able to have this curated catalog that includes something like Party Girl, because again, Parker Posey was starting like this impossible run of amazing roles, like really incredible, like subversive indie acting that we didn't really see a lot coming out of that time. And now she has this massive legacy, and I I respect this movie so damn much, and it just genuinely happy when I saw this got announced. And then the bigger thing for me maybe was seeing the scale that this reached, because the announcement came from a Letterboxd article that was shared hundreds and hundreds of times. So many people
Yeah,
excited
yeah,
about this.
yeah.
One of the big questions is this is the first time that this is being distributed through MVD distribution. Can you share
Mhm.
how that came about and maybe what the future holds for Fun City?
Sure. Yeah. So we started a new partnership with MVD uh, to distribute Fun City titles, and I mean we still have stuff that's coming through OCN Vinegar Syndrome as well. But yeah, it's I guess it's been about a little over 2 years since since we started putting titles out,
Right.
and so yeah, the opportunity came up to work with MVD and wanted to see how that would go. Just as a little bit of it. Obviously, it's not exactly the same model as Vinegar Syndrome OCN,
Right.
which is pretty unique. And yeah, so the letterbox announcement, for instance, they've been really big supporters of Fun City, and spoke with one of the editors over there, Mitchell, and he's been championing a lot of our releases.
I'm
And
so glad you just name dropped him. I produce a couple podcasts for a friend of mine, and Mitchell is a close friend of his. And
okay,
every single time Mitchell brings up a Fun City thing, I'm just so stoked because he reaches so many people. So,
well,
anyways, I
and so does Letterbox. I mean,
yeah,
it's a younger, not exclusively, but I feel like it's a younger demo, and I'm always looking at Letterbox to see
yeah,
how our releases are being received, especially because I've probably said this on here before. I've definitely said it on other podcasts. So many of our releases are like have very low viewer
yeah,
numbers, and so I can really see when our release comes out of a particular
yeah,
movie how the number rises, and so often it's completely solely from our release because it's not available anywhere else. Really,
right.
like Heartbreakers or something is a good example of that. So it's good. It's really interesting to see the number of views go up, and then how the actual rating starts to go up. And sometimes you're like, come on, how come this isn't a 3.5 by now?
Right.
Oh, I mean, look at all the 4-star reviews. um, and I don't know how the algorithm. I don't know how all of that works. It's the math is too high for me, I'm sure. But yeah. So anyway, the difference here is, of course, when we release a movie with OCN, it's announced on the first of the month, and that's when it goes up for sale. And there isn't, and it all sort of the news breaks then. This is more of a more traditional kind of um, distribution sort of uh, uh, calendar, what have you, with MVD as being a more traditional distributor. So I had the So in this case, we're not sort of beholden to that same kind of announcement and release that you have with OCN Vinegar Syndrome.
Right.
So this is more like, okay, well, let me see if somebody out there, like an outlet, a media outlet such as Letterbox, wants to break the story. if we have a trailer and a poster and it's it's news. So yeah, I mentioned it to Mitchell, and he was very happy to help share the news, and certainly reaches a lot more people than I would reach if I just put it on
Right.
our, of course. I mean, that's just par for the course in the industry, you know.
Right.
So yeah, it's nice that excuse me, that's as I think in our world, not just physical, it's not even just physical, it just generally movie movie watching and and movie conversation, like Letterbox has a lot of reach and has a lot of
Huge.
has plays a really big part in that. So for them to be aware of us, first of all, and then to actually like help champion us to one degree
Yeah.
or another, is really huge, and also very humbling too. Like it's just like nice when you know when someone like Letterbox knows who you are. So yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I'm just so glad you dropped Mitchell's name. Mitchell Beaupre for Letterboxd is amazing. He does a lot of really hard work, and I hope people seek him out as well. I may throw in a link for Mitchell down in the description below, just so
Okay.
people
Yes,
can
you
get
should.
an
Yes,
eye
you
on.
should. You should. And yeah, I mean, I'll just say that he may be doing some other he may be doing some off hour non letterbox but Fun City related stuff in the future. So uh,
Interesting.
yeah, but yeah, I had noticed that he had really last couple of our releases. I think he was someone that was he was really effusive about. I think Heartbreakers was one in particular.
Yeah.
So which is cool. I just love seeing that one. That one for me is seeing love for Heartbreakers, especially because it just really was kind of slept on for
Yeah.
so long, especially from the younger generation. Nobody's really because that's a movie that just out of circulation since the tape era. So for whatever
Right.
reason, nobody knows. I don't really know why this. It's kind of a mystery as to why some of these things just kind of got um, you know left behind. These
Right.
studio owned properties like Heartbreakers. But there you go. It's just opportunity for us. So I'll take it.
Two more things about the letterbox announcement. One, first of all, the art looks amazing, and I'm so glad that you always get great commissioned art. It really sells the film very well, and I hope more people grab onto it because it looks stupendous.
Oh, I think it's a huge part of what we do, and I always try
Yeah.
to match people up. I try to have the match the artwork up. It's the same thing with like whoever's doing a commentary or writing an essay. And in this case, Jess Roger, who's her professional name or company name is Roder and Friends, but it's really Jess. And
Right.
she actually did for us previously the artwork for Jeremy, the slipcover art for Jeremy, which I
Just
absolutely
gorgeous.
adore. And yeah, we worked. We had a really fun time collaborating on that. And I mean, I've like had T-shirts of with her art on them for years because she does a lot of rock music stuff, like a lot of stuff that's kind of like she's in that '70s realm a lot.
Yeah.
You want to like a Harry Nilsson shirt or something, or a Lee Hazelwood shirt,
Nice.
or a Rodriguez. She's done it. I mean, they're limited, but yeah, they're available. She's often done stuff in collaboration with like Light in the Attic, uh,
Oh, nice.
her distributor and label. And anyway, so I knew of her stuff for a long time and wanted to work with her. And I felt like Jeremy was like just like a perfect fit because of the milieu, the '70s thing, and that's a lot of the stuff that she does. She's and so many of those movies, of course, people have really big hair, and
Yeah.
I think and I love and I wanted to make sure and
Big
a lot
hair.
of well, yeah, but that's a different movie. But that's a
Right.
different
Of
argument.
course. Of course.
But yeah, but also what I mean is that a lot of her artwork, have been, especially rock and roll people have
Yeah.
especially from the 70s, you know, hair, um, and a lot of it. And so I was really excited about the Jeremy one, the way the artwork of like Linus's hair flowing
Yeah.
from the front to the back. Um, that was fun. But anyway, Party Girl. Um, Jess did the artwork for Party Girl, and I and that was a really good fit too, because previously, like about 5 years ago, she designed Parker's memoir, Parker Posey's best-selling memoir.
Wow.
So there's a connection there. So like, you know, Jess knows Parker. In fact, she showed the artwork to Parker like a month ago or something. I didn't ask her to do that, or didn't know she was going to do that, but she said that Parker signed off, gave the thumbs up to the Party Girl artwork, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, she just I knew it was going to be like, you know, really, you know, there was the synergy there, and yeah, so I love what she came up with. I think I said basically like, I want one side that's because we have a two-sided artwork, of course. So I said, like, let's get one side where it's kind of like serious Parker, like business like Parker, and then one side that's like party Parker. I should say
Right.
Mary, because her character's name in the movie is Mary. So I think she got that, because like the front is like, is Mary at the beginning of the movie when she's going to go to the library, and she's got the glasses on,
Right.
um, and she's looking pretty serious, and and then the back, you know, she's in the library, but it's a little more, she's a little more dressed down, but
Yeah.
still, you know, just super stylish, because that's
That's what
her.
that movie is. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, it's effortless, or it looks effortless anyway. And that's a
Yeah.
huge and that's one of the other really cool things about the movie, is that it has all of these real, like, you know, these like designer pieces that are like things they had to beg, borrow, and, you know, they didn't steal them, but, you know, they had to borrow pieces for these, you know, and people who really know fashion, they know like, oh, that's a Todd Oldham, or that's a Vivienne
Right.
Westwood, you know, it's a Gaultier, and it's cool. I mean, it's like one of the things that, you know, makes it this cultural touchdown. You know, it's like between the soundtrack and the fashion, like just the fact that it's a little movie, uh,
Right.
has all of these sort of top tier uh, elements to it that would think would cost a lot of money or be too cost prohibitive, but they had the right people who were putting the soundtrack together, putting the costume design together. Who, you know, it was like, you know, friends doing friends, you know, favors and things like that. So that, you know, I mean, that happens a lot in the business, and that's certainly what happened with Party Girl, you know, in a lot of ways.
Nice. The other thing that has been terribly frustrating for somebody that tries to, I don't want to sound too stuffy, but like try to educate the fans of this hobby with certain things, just to see how many people read a headline, lose their shit, and then don't finish the article.
Oh,
So many people saw the word MVD and went, "Oh my god, the world's on fire!" and
yeah,
Fun City is over, and this is going to be something completely different.
yeah.
I was astonished by how many people didn't just read a couple paragraphs down to see that it says they will still be partnered with Vinegar Syndrome. So that is an ongoing partnership, and you will continue to have releases through OCN.
We will. Yeah, yeah.
That
So it's
that's how easy it is. Just yes, come on, people.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's funny because people. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the reading comprehension is sometimes really lacking when it's all right there. Like there's a button to say "read more," but people don't. And yeah, it's usually all there. Or sometimes I just saw a tweet where somebody was tweeting about the Radiance Fun City UK release of Married to the Mob. It's our release, but the UK for the UK, and somebody in the tweet thread then said, God, I hope some of these great extra features come to North America sometime soon. It's like, are you taking the piss? I don't know. I mean, is that uh, so? Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I just have to laugh. Um, But yeah, so it's just to me, people have only known us one way, and this is
Right.
just it's for me. I just look at it as some opportunity to do some things a different way, to
Yeah.
grow a little bit, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
And I think one of the important parts of that is the growth aspect because again, Fun City has developed this fan base of people that just genuinely align with a lot of the flavors of these films. And other partner labels have already shown that sort of growth as well. So I can see why people would be afraid of they're gone. But at the same time, not not to diminish anything that OCN does, but when they have, I think they're up to 22 partner labels, and they're announcing sometimes 5 Vinegar Syndrome titles and, like, 12 partner labels, and that happens
Yeah,
all at once. So,
yeah,
to like,
yeah.
with Party Girl, you Fun City genuinely had a moment on Thursday, and if you're coming out with 17 announcements on the 1st of a month, that is kinda hard to stick out from the pack sometimes, I imagine.
Yeah, no, it's a good it's a good point. It's interesting that you bring that up, or that you've observed that. And I hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah,
You know, in relation to Thursday. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a different thing, because if we had done if Party Girl was released through OCN, yeah, it would have been one of 20 something other releases. Yeah,
right.
it's I mean, they're obviously the partner label stable has grown so much since Fun City started. When we
Yeah,
started, we were number 2. The Agfa was the only other outside label or partner label. So yeah, so and there's obviously a lot of really strong benefits to that
yeah,
and that model. And but yeah, sometimes yeah, it's like not in no despair no meant as not meant in a disparaging way, but it's just sort of the fact of the matter is, yes, if you're saying it, uh it's not, I didn't say it, you said it, that it gets
right.
lost. If you're noticing that, then there's something to that sometimes things just there's just too much out there. And yeah, it was nice to be able to just to have Party Girl, first of all, to do an announcement, like I said, to do, because Party Girl is a film that's beloved and has a huge audience that goes way
Very
beyond
much so.
the fun, our core audience.
Yep.
So yeah, I felt like, yeah, it was definitely a benefit, I think, and also kind of enlightening to see, just to see have a different way to announce it. So yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll have more titles like that are uh, exciting enough and are loved enough, beloved enough, that we can do similar types of
Right.
announcements, news breaks or whatever. But that's not always going to happen. I mean, some of our stuff is not going to necessarily be sexy enough, at least
Right.
at the time of announcement. So
All right. Trying to respect your time, but I've got two more big things and then a small question left.
sure.
The other
No, this
big
is a lot
one.
of fun. You're
Good.
it's still fairly early. We still have a lot of the day ahead of us. So
Well, I mean, one of the other biggest things for Fun City, you just brought them up a minute ago, Radiance. We always champion accessibility of films on this channel,
right,
and one of the big things is now instead of obviously like OCN distributes to the entire world if somebody orders, but that can be cost prohibitive, and
right.
obviously, being a partner of Radiance will open up a whole new world essentially to the idea of Fun City and these exact same discs. For those wondering if it's ever coming to the North America side, hey, they're already here. Some of those they've got 3 films announced. First of all, how'd that come out? So how did the relationship develop and build? And
Sure.
is there anything interesting or maybe something exclusive that will happen in the UK, or will most of that be following what you've done in the US?
So Fran, I've known Fran for a long time, just through, he was at Arrows,
Yeah.
as most people know, for many years, and I was previously at Kino Lorber for a lot of that time, and we just have, a lot of, so you just have a lot of common connections.
Right.
and friendships and acquaintances, and so Fran had approached me, that, in addition to doing Radiance releases over there that were, going to be on the Radiance label, that he also wanted to try this sort of slightly different kind of sub distribution, or it's I don't even know quite what to call it, but basically it kind of is just it was interesting the way it it took shape
Yeah.
with especially with the MGM titles, because of course I don't own the MGM titles, but yeah, we worked. He wanted to do them as Fun City releases over there, which is, I just said, cool, let's give it a try.
Yeah.
And we're still it's still, to be to be determined, like how it all shakes out in terms of the sales and whatnot,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, Fran's a really smart guy. He's obviously, he's been in this business a long time,
Yep.
very savvy. So yeah, cool to be partnered with him. And then with like Walking the Edge, that's a little bit different than with the MGM owned titles, because Walking the Edge is a title that we own. So it's a slightly, different setup. But I
Right.
mean, I guess they're all being released. I think they're all being released as like Fun City UK or something, which is
Yeah.
kind of cool. That wasn't anything that
Very cool.
I didn't have that really, in the plans, or in any way, like in the master, you know
Global domination wasn't on the to-do
master
list.
plan. No. So yeah, I don't know. So we'll see. It's just, I mean, Fran's doing. It's pretty amazing the pickup he's already gotten
Yeah.
for his label, and the way he's got, the way people were excited about it right away, which obviously speaks to his long tenure with Arrow, and all the great things that they did and that he did with them. So yeah, it's partnerships like that are are cool to be a part of. So yeah, like I said, we'll see how it goes. I think there will probably be more. We'll see. But yeah, you've got three right now to start with.
Yeah, so the 3 so far, we've got Walking the Edge, Married to the Mob, and Cutter's Way, and I believe none of them have technically released in the UK yet, right? First is February, I believe.
People have been getting Cutter's Way and Marriage to the Mob already.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
those are out. Those are out. Yeah, because
I love
I've
that.
been retweeting, like, people holding
Oh, nice.
their UK editions. That's how I found out. That's how I had the tweet about the guy, saying, well, I hope these come to North
That's
America
right.
sometime
Yeah.
soon. Yeah.
Don't know how
So
I forgot about that. Yeah.
yeah. So I don't think Walking the Edge came out yet, but yeah. So we've got three, and he's partnering up with other labels too. I don't know which ones are public yet, so I won't say anything.
Maywu Films is public, and that is an exciting one for me because they kind of quietly released that first release that they did. Let me see what the exact title is because I don't want to screw it up on them right now. But it is Man Marked for Death 20 years later, and I don't even remember how, but I came across it online, and because I share all the announcements, I shared it, and it kind of lit up. Like it's one of my most like publicly engaged posts because people had never heard of the label. They had heard of the film, but had never had a chance to see it. And then when it came out, they had no way of sending things out globally. So Fran is going to kind of open that door for a label like this to be able to actually have an impact with their films. And that's when you get these partnerships, I don't think people realize how genuinely life changing for both the label that's partnering with him, but also for film fans to be able to get access to some of these.
Hmm.
It can genuinely change lives, and it's amazing to see some of these get like genuinely a global release. You could reach anybody in the entire world like that.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, he's in the UK. I don't know. So I don't know. It's how global it is, because it's
Well, he's allowing people to order from anywhere, I believe.
okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's always kind of like I sort of feel like most things are accessible if you want to pay for the shipping, essentially,
Right.
from somewhere. But yeah, if you have an official distributor in another country, of course, then then
Right.
there's more options, cost-effective options, at least for people that are over there in that country or nearer
Yeah.
to it. I mean, the shipping from crossing the Atlantic, of course, is what gets really pricey. So yeah, it definitely seems to be like almost like more of a that's almost seems like more of a deterrent for people than say like region coding or something
Yeah.
like that. Because it does seem like people are more like, well, I'm not going to buy it not because it's region A and I'm region B, but
Right.
because the cost is just so stupid now with the shipping costs have just gotten so expensive. So
Well, on the other side of things, it's not great in the US for like boutique physical stores where somebody can walk in and just discover a Fun City release. There's some, obviously, but it's not
yeah,
like wide chains or anything like that anymore. But in the
right.
UK, like there's a much bigger opportunity for somebody to be, maybe somebody in their 60s that doesn't really import. They can stumble into an HMV and go, "Oh, what is this walking the edge? Oh, that's Robert Forster. Oh my God, this looks fantastic." So,
I mean, if you say so, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe the brick and mortar uh, uh, store, that market is maybe still more robust over there. I'm not. I don't know. But I'll take your word for it. Yes, here, of course, we're in a more. I mean, I just think of it generally as around the world, not just here,
right,
that people are more or less shopping from home most of the time. And unless you're a huge label, like
right.
unless you're like Criterion or something like that, and you have like a section in Barnes and Noble, you know, I mean, it's like obviously that's like a whole other thing, is
Right.
that's that sale, for instance, I mean that kind of thing is, I mean that's like decades in the making. But yeah, it's very hard. It's hard to get product in physical stores, brick and mortar stores, for sure. That's not the way things have been trending for a long time. Just like print journalism is dead or dying.
Right.
It's similar. So yeah, I mean, very cool though. If I actually see one of our releases in a store, which is usually like the Archive, which is
Yeah.
Vinegar Syndrome store, so it's pretty cool. But it's definitely something when you're like, oh, I'm in the. I haven't actually seen one of our releases in a Barnes and Noble or something, but maybe some of them have been there. I don't know. I've seen them online, but if
Right.
I, yeah,
And that's
if I,
actually, we were talking about MVD. It's actually one of the things that MVD kind of has a little larger distribution possibility with something like that. They've got more stores that they ship to internally than OCN, obviously. And OCN does put out the retail releases, but a lot of that, it's not going to, OCN's not putting releases in Walmart or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm not totally sure about like where all because certain, obviously certain accounts buy certain movies and
Right.
don't others. But yeah, certainly MVD is a more they're a more traditional distributor, have been around a
Right.
lot longer, and they have more outreach in terms of wholesale distribution and sort of the more more traditional kind of that part of their sales is pretty strong and well established. So yeah, it may be that, I mean, hopefully, with releases that are like something like Party Girl will be in other, maybe be in places that it might not be if it was going through OCN.
Yeah.
So there's pluses and minuses. Obviously,
Of
OCN
course.
Vinegar Syndrome has their model is hugely direct to consumer,
Yeah.
which is which also has a lot of benefits. And we certainly experience like when a title goes up for sale, day of sale, a huge, obviously the sales are very front loaded. You get a
Right.
lot. It's a lot of like, see it, pre-order it right away, and so yes, we'll have some adjustment in terms of like how these things roll out and how the numbers kind of start to move and when they move and how
Right.
quickly or how slowly they move.
One of the things that you have teased is you put out a picture of a title that we haven't said even once tonight, and that is the wonderful Primetime Panic box set, and you put a 2 on the front of it. Can you, in any way, expand on what's coming? Because for a lot of us, those were exciting films to have in that box set, and just a really fun release that again, I don't know that it's like this big industry wide thing, but I feel like we're seeing an increase in TV films kind of being distributed across the board a little bit, but
Yeah,
not
we definitely have. Yeah, yeah.
one big one, like Toby Hooper's "I'm Dangerous Tonight" last year was a fun one, and then
Mhm.
Kino Lorber's putting out a lot of those old
Yeah,
TV.
yeah, yeah. Kino, yeah, yeah. Frank has been he's been good. I mean, yeah, with the TV movies, he's certainly for I feel like for at least a few years has really put out
Yeah,
some pretty major ones and done some really, some and really important releases and things that people were like super excited we're seeing the light of day on physical and on Blu-ray.
yeah,
I When I was there, a couple that I was really championing that I was really excited came out, were the Jericho Mile, Michael Mann's movie, and Nightmare in Badham County,
yes,
John Moxie. Those were two that it was that was part of a big deal with Disney, and I remember I
nice,
was just like, just make sure you get those two. It ended up being he's just got like everything.
right,
It was a huge, huge deal, but that was cool because those were like you know movies that had. I mean, obviously that the Michael Mann one, is those films that had directors that we think of as being, oh, they direct feature films.
yep,
But the fact that there's this is a movie that Michael Mann directed for TV. It
yeah,
actually, it's the first movie, feature length movie he directed. It's important, you're trying to get the whole body of work.
right,
So when these TV movies aren't there, um, or not accessible, then you're like missing sometimes some significant parts of the body of that work. So like the ones we released, for instance, we have movie directed by Jonathan Kaplan. And Jonathan Kaplan, obviously, people know and love a lot of the feature films he's made, but he had obviously also done a chunk of TV movies, and
right,
Death Rock to Osaka was one of those. And then we had a movie by Joe Sargent, and Joe Sargent did Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3, but also he's one of those directors that did a lot of TV movies too. So for a long time, you had the feature movie, the theatrical films were available and
right,
out there, but the TV movies, like once they aired on TV, they were kind of just gone unless you saw them on TV late at night or something. But that
yeah,
happens obviously less and less now. So yeah, so yeah, it was that was totally probably maybe I said this when we talked last time, but like the Primetime Panic was definitely kind of I don't know, let's see how it goes.
right,
It wasn't some might, in some ways it was kind of a risk, I guess, because it was all pretty early in our our history as a label,
right,
and it was TV movies, and that's also our first box set, and also kind of early maybe to have a box set. But yeah, it was just I once I was able to
hmm,
see that maybe we could group some of these because it came from a large catalog, so it's kind
yeah.
of like I really was cherry picking. And so once I felt like, oh, these kind of go together in a way, like we can make these work.
Eh,
And,
Before you go on, I'm just curious if you know offhand. I'm trying to think. Was there another partner label box set before that, or was that the first OCN partner label box set? I think it might have been
uh,
the first.
maybe, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I
Other
don't like.
than like Agfa puts out a bunch of their like
Oh,
40-minute. They put out triple features of basically shorts, but
okay, okay. Yeah, you would know. You might know better than I would actually. But yeah. So anyway, so Primetime Panic, it was like super surprising and obviously super exciting that that what you just said, like how excited it was and how you felt like it was such a major release. Because I was kind of like I was very 50-50 on that
right.
because I just felt like, oh, these movies have like they have they have a lot of qualities that are they have a lot of positives, but I felt like they had a lot of there are other aspects of some of the they have some of those just flaws that are inherent to something being made for
Right.
major network television and when they were. So I just felt like, well, is someone going to watch this and be like, oh, this is so hokey or
Right.
like, oh, this is unbelievable. I don't know. But it seems like mostly people were just appreciating that they were available in such, good quality versions and
Yeah.
whatever. So yeah. So Primetime Panic 2 is in the works and I don't have a release date for it yet, but I think it may be it may be the next one to announce more in more detail. We'll see, but yeah, three more. It'll be three more movies. So
Sweet.
yeah, from the same era, and yeah, I hope hopefully people appreciate it as much as the first one, but it remains to be seen. So, sequels are hard,
I
especially
Yeah.
if the original one is you know it does as well or is as appreciated as the first one.
The last thing that we'll go with, just to give a personal aspect to Fun City, I just discovered before we went live that you have a bird. Can you tell us about your bird at all? I know it's a weird way to end it, but it's kinda cool. A lot of people don't know a lot about those details.
Well, pause it. I'll bring her over here. Well, this is Garuda. She's hiding right now in my neck here. She likes to wearing I if I wear a collared shirt, she always likes that. She likes to burrow, but
Nice.
she's gonna fly away when but I but yeah, she's shy. See, uh, but whoop, whoop, there she goes. So she, it's not me. I mean, she's gonna birds. You can't force birds to do things. You kind of
Right.
just let them go. She likes to be. She's pretty cage. She's comfortable. She's a bird that I mean, she can go where she wants to go, but she's more comfortable being if her cage is there. She's going to go back to her cage unless she's really tired. Then she might fall asleep on me. But
Right.
yeah,
That's
so little
fantastic.
camera shy. Sorry.
No, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. I hope people enjoy that. It was just something that seemed interesting because not a lot of people get to know, some of the faces and the lives
Yeah.
of the people behind these labels.
Well, that's Garuda, and she's a green cheek conure, and she's 20 years old.
Wow. How long have you
I,
had her?
I adopted her when she was 15. So
Wow.
yeah, they could live to be in their 30s. So and yeah, Garuda. That's the name she came with, and that's comes from Hindu mythology. It's like a bird humanoid type character. So people from
Interesting.
that part of the world will sometimes, people. I will once in a while have someone say, "Oh, that's really cool that you named your bird Garuda." But most people, I say I didn't name her, and it's a cool name, but I have to explain it. I think I want to say the Indonesian official, one of the Indonesian airlines or the official Indonesian airline is called Garuda Air. So
That makes sense with what the name means. That's fantastic.
yeah,
Um, anyways, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing you. Thanks for sharing all the information behind these. And again, thank you for all the quality releases over the last almost year since we last talked. It has been an incredible era to see the growth for Fun City and to see these new partnerships crop up. I'm just like distantly proud to see all the work that you're put in, and I'm happy for you. And I hope that the success is continued because it is something that is affecting the world in a very positive way. So thank you.
wow, wow. Well, thank you. I mean, that's like the nicest thing anybody said to me. It's certainly at least in 2023, I think. So no, it really means that's really heartening and just really it's good to hear. I mean, and I'm excited for what's to come and sharing it with you and everyone else. So thanks again for having me, and let's do it again.
Yeah, we absolutely will. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time.